getting louder, candidly real loud, for a new voice, and I heard it. Speaking of change, I do believe it can be a good thing. Having a fresh voice, a different perspective, new ideas will be healthy for the St. Louis Cardinals. What does change mean for the St. Louis Cardinals organization? And above all, what does it mean for our fans? The economic landscape of baseball has continued to shift over the past decade. How you build rosters looks completely different based on your market size. The ability for a small market team to be successful will require the following traits: innovation, never lose sight of your core principles, and remain nimble and flexible in the ever fluid environment. And finally, I want to wish the new leadership team success. It's been a pleasure working with Haim and Surf over the past year, and I wish them the best. 30 years is a long time. 18 in the seat is a long time. But it has been an honor and a privilege to do this in this great city of St. Louis. It is a baseball city. It is my home. And I think the future for this city and this team is bright. So thank you. Questions? Jeffrey.
Mo, as you prepare to just walk outside of here, step outside of this and look at this as an outsider, what's your view of where the organization is today, where you've left it, and what the next thing is?
Well, obviously, when we look back at the past few years, we haven't gotten to where we wanted to, right? I think under Bill DeWitt and that ownership group, we always went into it trying to get to October and hopefully get to the World Series and win. Obviously, there's only one winner every year. I think the past few years, we've had some headwinds. When you think back to just like, the revenues have changed. But overall, I think where the minor league system is, it's in a strong spot. I think we've had a couple strong drafts, which is certainly going to be helpful. I think our international department has done yeoman's work, and I think you'll start to see some of those returns in the future. So, net, I feel like our system's in a pretty good spot. So I would be optimistic.
How do you balance your career with all the highs, and then so much of this business is what have you done for us lately? How do you balance the highs and the lows throughout your career?
Well, there are a lot more highs than lows, so I think that makes it easy to balance. But it is a demanding job, and I understood that. When you think about the 30 clubs you can work for, not all are the St. Louis Cardinals and have the history of the St. Louis Cardinals. So, I took a lot of pride in us being successful, took a lot of pride in us trying to be innovative and creative throughout the years. And, did we get it? Were we 100% perfect? No, we made mistakes. We recognize that, but there is something to be said. If you're not making mistakes, you might not be trying. So, overall, when I look back at these last 18 years or the 30 years, I do it with great pride.
Mo, to piggyback on both of those questions, I know you're familiar with like the concept of steward, and I'm wondering, Bill mentioned all the things you accomplished. We all know what's happened over the last few years. I wonder in your seat right now how you look back from where you got the position on Halloween night in 2007 to now, maybe behind the scenes, maybe in different details, how you feel you've left it better for the next person.
Well, it's, I'm not up here to pat myself on the back, but I hope that the people I've worked with, that I have had some positive influence on them. And, obviously there's going to be a new regime, there's going to be changes, and there's going to be things done maybe differently than I may have done them, but that doesn't make it right or wrong. But that's the ability to, or the good thing to have that new voice. As I think back at my career and the people you've touched or the people that you were involved in, and there's so many of them, but I feel like when I look back at my career, I hope the impact I made on them was something positive and lasting.
Well, prior to the season starting, you made it very clear that the priority of this season was to hopefully answer questions going into years to come, especially with this current roster. And
Yeah, probably not as clearly as we'd hoped, right? I think some players we were hoping to learn a little bit more about, but in the end, I think that's the challenge of this offseason and what really lies ahead in the future. And I don't want to get into what I think each player needs to do. I think that's Chaim and his team and Ollie have to like decide what that looks like. But I do think one takeaway I do have on this year was a lot of those younger players learned a lot. They had a drink from the fire hose. Maybe they didn't make the right adjustments or the adjustments soon enough, but hopefully they grow from that. When you get an opportunity to play every day, the goal is, can you produce? Can you post? And if you can do those two things, you can be in this game a long time. But if you're not doing those two things can be difficult for you. And I think our players learned a lot from that this year.
Mo, you referenced sort of some headwinds in the last few years, and I think in the past you've referenced the pandemic as sort of almost a benchmark in terms of just how things may have changed, or just I guess maybe just a timeline benchmark. How do you feel like what's been the biggest challenge since that point, and how do you feel like you guys have handled that in terms of the things that you mentioned, innovation, core principles, and remaining flexible and nimble?
So, like as you guys can imagine, we've always had just like a successful group of core players. Dating back to when the Cardinals first acquired Mark McGuire, and then the emergence of Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina. But at that same time, we acquired Jim Edmonds, Scott Rowland, and then you fast forward to Matt Holliday, and then the emergence of a Matt Carpenter, and then acquiring Berkman, Beltran, and then that led us into the Goldschmidt Arenado era. But what ended up happening in that time was, the elite player lost a step, and that's the tough part to balance because we definitely felt like internally we were still producing a lot of those complementary players, but we didn't have the type of player that emerged as the next great. And when I reflect on this, I mean, I even go back to something like when Oscar Tavares passed away, and all of a sudden we had a pivot because we lost that future middle of the order hitter that we thought we were going to have. Um, and those are difficult challenges. But some of those headwinds are also what's happening in our city, with fans sometimes complain about parking, safety, and these are all issues that have to be addressed as we continue to move forward. But I think with the investments that are happening downtown, I think everybody should be excited about where this city is headed. And so the Cardinals have always been successful, not because of our TV contract, but really from our fan base. And if we can get people to feel safe and wanting to come back down here again and re-engage, I think that's where the Cardinals will take that step forward. And as far as like the infrastructure of what's happening with the baseball operation specifically, they're going to be positioned well. Smart group of guys working upstairs. They understand where they need to go, what they need to accomplish. And from that standpoint, now that I put my fan hat on, I'm excited about the future.
Mo, just with kind of this year being sort of that transition year with the incoming new front office, how different was your role and what you're able to do as president of baseball ops? Just with
Yeah, my hands were tied, really. No, I'm kidding. It was fairly normal. My interactions with Hyman Surf on what was happening on the player development side. We had a standing meeting every Monday, so it's kept in the loop. I did not spend a lot of time traveling to minor league cities like I've done for the last 17 years, but that's why I have confidence in directionally where this is going. But as far as like the day to day, I was still very much involved and kind of did my normal job. Big question is, what am I going to do tomorrow? Right? That's the stress.
I do, yeah. Mo, from the day you were hired until now, can you share some insight into how building a baseball team, just the business of being in the front office has changed, evolved?
Sure. I guess you're asking me to go back to our 1993. Payrolls were much different. I think free agents were paid on what they did, not what they might do. collectively the draft had unlimited rounds, so you could take a lot of shots on goal, if you will. And but what's changed is just the economic landscape of the game. And I think what's happening right now in baseball is you're starting to see a wider and wider spread of the haves and have-nots. And so if you're not part of the haves, then you got to be really, really smart on how you start strategically thinking about roster building. And so, under Bill DeWitt, you can think back to like 1998, when we draft, or 1997, when we drafted Rick Ankiel, and 28 other teams passed on him at the time, and we took a shot. And so Bill always had us thinking about drafting and development. And I think over the 30 years, I think we did a pretty good job at that. And now it's what more can you squeeze out of that orange as you try to get more on the margins. And I think you look at teams right now that are successful that aren't large market teams, i.e. Milwaukee, they're doing a really good job at that. And that's what we need to replicate. Thank you.
So I'll preface this with hindsight is, of course, 2020, but when you came into this year, you made it clear that the intent was still to win, but there might be some organization decisions that prioritized player and development over winning that particular game. When you look at how the National League playoff picture ultimately shaked out, is it hard to stomach that, or are you confident that this is the right thing to do for the organization?
I was like reflecting back on this season last night, and you think about like close games you lose, or games you give up in the ninth or in the extra innings. And that's why, like, as a manager, as a coach, you are always trying to impress upon players like everything does matter, because it might not feel like it at that given moment, but it does. And when you finish 3 or 4 games out of something, or you go into the final series finally being eliminated, it just shows you how close these margins are. And I don't regret anything we did this year, in the sense of we knew it was going to be, difficult to try to thread this needle. If you're looking at hindsight, would it have been smarter to try to trade some of the players that we ended up trading in the offseason? But we wanted to give our fan base some level of hope. We wanted to try to see if a couple guys did click and get hot. And, unfortunately, we did come up short.
No, I remember in 22, you told me in St. Louis, you're not allowed to rebuild, that you have to keep building on the fly. But the way it went downhill in 23, looking back, would you have done it any differently as far as starting a major rebuild in 23 as opposed to trying to keep it together?
I think, the unique thing about the role I had with the Cardinals is we never tried to rebuild. Um, the words you may hear tomorrow might be different, but that's for them to speak. But in terms of regrets, I don't have any.
Mo, along the lines of what you're reflecting back on this season, when you got to the trade deadline, the team was 55 and 55, right even. Could you give us a window into the decision at that point? Because if you're looking for the holistic view of the organization, you make the trades, but you also had the pressure of knowing these were your final weeks and the brand of the Cardinals. How did you weigh those? What kind of discipline and what kind of influence was on the factor that you directly influence what followed by trading pitchers?
Yeah, obviously we made trades, right? And arguably you could have said we could have done more, but we were still trying to thread that needle as best we could. And the irony is that I do think like the bullpen stepped up when we, lost some arms, but I think from an offensive standpoint, the consistency on a day in and day out basis just became too much for us. And, I think back to that, I think it was the right decision to do what we did. I think the acquisitions of some of the young talent we received is going to bode well for the organization. And ultimately, future roster decisions is up to a different group. But as far as trying to always do what's right for the organization is always something that's been in the back of my mind.
Was there anything that could have been done in that stretch that you would have added?
Not really, because we were never offered anything that was that compelling for X, Y, or Z.
Well, when you talk about the economics of the game as they exist now and the way that it's a little more stratified than maybe it was 20 years ago, how do you reflect on your role in that? the front office in Houston, for example, was for a long time staffed by people who came out of this organization. I think Michael Elias is talking right now in Baltimore. Do you reflect on that at all? Do you look at yourself as a person who maybe was some of the genesis of the way of some of those things happened?
Well, I definitely think, my experience and what I was exposed to added to a more modern game of baseball as far as decision making. But I think, like, as far as like the haves and have nots, no. Um, we've always tried to figure out a way to just keep up. And, that's always been the challenge, and it'll be challenges in the future as well. But as far as like some of the people I worked with along the way, I mean, those are all really smart people and, creative and innovative, and now they're running other teams.
Do you imagine yourself running another team someday? And when you talk to friends around the game and you tell them no, do they believe you?
To answer your question, I don't envision myself doing that. Have some connection to the game at some point, possibly, but I do think for the next couple months, I'd really like to just catch my breath and step away.
Well, you mentioned the notion of maybe could have even gone a little bit further, done more around the trade deadline. How much of the decision process this season was with a pretty heavy mindset on not wanting to make long-range implication type of decisions? You mentioned a number of times, like, well, that's sort of for the next group to determine. How much did that play into potentially even going back to the offseason and the way that you guys wanted to handle roster decisions this year?
It was something in the back of my mind, but again, if we thought there was a right play to do something, we would have done it. But it was just not enough. It wasn't compelling enough to say yes to.
Any last questions for Mo? Last time.
What are you doing tomorrow?
Nothing.
Do you know what you're doing over the next few months? I mean, do you have an idea in place? There's some projects still to be finished around here. Will you see any of those to completion?
I don't know, but I don't think so. We'll see.
Mo, on behalf of this entire group, we thank you, we wish you well, and a very distinguished and long, and you gave us a lot of memories, so thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you guys. Cheers.
That's the kind of thing we all aspire to. What are you doing tomorrow? Nothing. Don't you just want to say you're doing nothing tomorrow? There's nothing better than nothing.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. I'll tell you what we're going to do right now is
Nothing?
we're going to take a break.
We got to do something.
We got to pay some bills. It's 12:25. But when we come back after the break, and Chris will give us a weather forecast, we'll catch up with Matt Pauley. He is in the room right now as John Mozeliak continues to chat with a couple of reporters on his way out. We'll get Matt's thoughts here at Busch Stadium about it. We will, of course, go back to our Gashouse Gang feed and check out your comments and questions about what you just saw. We'll play some of those and put them up on our screen. And we'll continue to have coverage of what has happened here today at Busch Stadium, the final press conference for John Mozeliak, and a preview of what's to come tomorrow. Heim Bloom, 10 a.m., live on KMOX. It's the Gashouse Gang, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, and we'll be right back, and by Anderson Hospital.
Hey, it's Jeff Sachs at Sachs Financial. Did you know that you have a pension and there are ways to maximize how you take it? That's right. It's called Social Security. Find out more at retiresafestl.com/guide. That's retiresafestl.com/guide.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody. Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have leaf filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
To get this special radio offer, go to leaffilter.com/deal for your free gutter inspection today and get up to 30% off. That's leaffilter.com/deal for up to 30% off. leaffilter.com/deal. See representative for warranty details.
Tom Ackerman here, always proud to talk about Genesis of St. Charles, and especially when they're trying to sell cars with the all-out sellout and out to break all sales records in the month of September. You can buy online and let them deliver to you. People are flocking to Genesis of St. Charles at 5601 Veterans Memorial Parkway. You'll love the state-of-the-art facility and the luxurious service that Genesis of St. Charles provides. Missouri's first and only standalone Genesis dealership, not to mention Genesis of St. Charles is the #1 Genesis dealer in the state of Missouri for 2025. They call it the all-out sellout. They are out to break all sales records in September. They're Genesis of St. Charles. And remember, every purchase comes with 3 years of complimentary Genesis service valet, complimentary vehicle pickup and delivery. GenesisofStCharles.com.
Glover here for my friends at Cantor Injury Law. Cantor is local, and we're here doing the work every day. We're right here in St. Louis, and we're ready to fight for you. CantorInjuryLaw.com or call 314-628-9999.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be solely based on advertisements.
Well, we have higher than normal temperatures this time of year. Gross. It's 86 degrees. Feels like 93. The high today will be 89. The weather brought to you by Financial and Tax Strategies.
Retirement shouldn't feel like balancing a checkbook while blindfolded. I'm Gary Goldberg, and my team helps you see the big picture so you can retire younger, richer, and with less anxiety. Because guessing is not a strategy. Tune in to Wealth and Wisdom with Gary Goldberg Saturday mornings at 7 here on KMOX.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. We recently received a call from an injured person. The insurance company had offered them $11,000. We took the case over and got more than $2 million in court. Morgan & Morgan.
Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
1120 AM, 1041 FM, and streaming on the Odyssey app. KMOX is with you, however you listen, wherever you listen.
Welcome back to the Gashouse Gang with Chris Ranji. I'm Tom Ackerman. Chris in our downtown studios. I am here at Busch Stadium, and joining me is KMOX's Matt Pauley, who just was in the room for the John Mozeliak final press conference. Your thoughts on what you saw here?
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of no real questions were answered. I don't think we went into this thinking that real questions were going to get answered. Anytime we started to get into that territory, it was that's a question for the next regime. I think it was a nice opportunity to honor Mo for what he did over a very long amount of time. Glad that he got the opportunity to thank a number of individuals, got a little bit of insight into what this season looked like this past year, but I don't know. I don't think there was a whole lot of note that was really said. It was nice to do. I think it was something you should do. But now it's time to move on to what's going to be next.
He did say, I love this job, but knew it was time for a change. And this is a significant era in Cardinals baseball. Tomorrow, there will be a new head of baseball operations, also known as a general manager. Mm-hmm. That title was basically changed for John Mozeliak in the middle of his tenure, which went 18 years. And Chris, when you look back at Cardinals history, I mean, there's only been two as long as I've covered the team. Walt Jocketty from the mid 90s, and I started in 1997, as did you behind the scenes right around that time with us at KMOX. And then John Mozeliak in 2007 takes over and ends up for 18 years running the operations, although he had been with the organization for 30 years. It is a big change because the two were tied together. Jocketty brought in Mozeliak, and when he was fired, they ultimately hired the man that he brought in to work along his side.
And there's a lot of continuity here, too, going from, so I mean, you're talking decades now of continuity from Jocketty to Mozeliak to now Chaim Bloom, who's been in the organization for a couple of years already. So it's not like he's jumping in out of nowhere. And I suppose there's a lot of value to that, to having somebody who's been here, kind of knows what's going on, has been able to at least sit back and observe, watch, know what's happening, and then now he can put his stamp on it. And I don't know how different this is all going to look, the way they operate, how it's going to look, we're probably not going to have any real idea of that until well into next season or maybe even beyond that. I mean, they're going to make changes with the roster for sure, but it's really about how the organization looks, how it operates, and if there are some noticeable differences. And I don't know how much we can really expect in that regard, at least not early on.
I did think it was notable when I think John Denton asked a question about, you had previously said that the Cardinals don't rebuild. And Mo's answer was, well, you might hear something different tomorrow.
Yep, he did say that.
Honestly, that was probably the single biggest thing that was said today, because that gives us probably an indication that the conversation is going to be more about a rebuild come tomorrow.
That was classic Mo, and he's been doing it for years. He did it on Sundays on KMOX. He did it in his media scrums and in his press conferences. If you listen closely, he usually gives you a little something to think about that's coming, and he never led you astray either. And what he said right there, and we talked about it right before you came in as well, Matt, when he said that is something you might hear differently tomorrow, that is a clear indication that we are going to hear about how they are going to rebuild this franchise tomorrow with Chaim Bloom overseeing things, Chris, when Rob Serfolio and everybody else.
Right. So I know Matt talked about this with us on the Chris and Amy show earlier today, and you know what the appetite, or at least I guess the grace that Cardinals fans would give the organization if they were to just flat out say, look, we are going to rebuild. We are going to do this from the ground up. It's going to take a little bit of time. We hope that you bear with us. We hope that you stick with us while we go through that process. And I think that the philosophy the Cardinals have had for years, 15, 20 years, however long you want to say it, of we don't rebuild, we just continually retool and try to stay competitive the entire time. I think that is a perfectly sound philosophy, but we have seen teams be successful in the last decade or so, kind of tearing it down a little bit and then starting over and then having really good results after they did that. The Cubs have done it. The Astros have done it. So we've seen it work. And because we have seen it work, I wonder how lenient people would be if the Cardinals were to just say, look, stick with us. We promise this is going to work. This is going to work. And a couple of years from now, you are going to see that we have moved in the right direction and made the right decisions. I think there'd be an appetite for that. But, as Matt, you said this earlier, you're not sure how patient people would be. I think they would be at first. I think they'd certainly buy in at first. And maybe I'm giving them more credit than deserved, but I think they'd stick this out. I think they would if the Cardinals were totally upfront about what was next.
That's the big part. First off, the Cardinals have to be very, very clear and not try to beat around the bush and not try to say things to make it seem like, well, maybe they'll win, maybe they won't. Just tell us exactly what the plan is, and there's going to be people that are in it. Although for Cardinals fans, because this is now 3 straight years of missing the playoffs, 2 sub 500 years in that. And now if we're talking about a full-scale rebuild where it's going to be another 2 or 3 years, do Cardinals fans have it in them to go 6 years without being a playoff club? I think that's asking a lot.
It is, and they probably should have been clear a year ago. They should have right out of the gate at the end of the 24 season. They should have been fully transparent as to what they were going to do. But quite honestly, I'm not sure they knew exactly what they wanted to do. Did they want to go into this reset runway, whatever they wanted to call it? They avoided the word rebuild. They wanted to keep people thinking that they were going to be competitive because there were players on this roster that wanted to come back and wanted to win. So they were really conflicted. And then, what did them no favors? Going 19-8 in May. I know that was fun, and they were 9 games over 500, but we all knew this was not a playoff roster. The players wanted to believe it, and of course, they're going to go out and do all they can, but that raised everyone's expectation, and then when eventually they weren't going to reach the finish line, especially at the trade deadline, they were trying to unload some players. This all came to an end where it's a disappointment of a season, when in reality, they were a 500 team trying to figure out what they had on the field. They should have they should have tried to come up with a clear message in the beginning, but I honestly don't think a year ago they knew exactly what the next 365 were going to be because they didn't know if they'd be able to trade Arenado or not.
There
That
you
was
go.
a big one.
So that, I mean,
That was a big one.
that to me is the question. Had they traded Arenado, could they have been clearer? Could they have just said, all right, see, we did this, we've moved on, and it's obvious what our intent is. I wonder how much them having to hang on to him this season threw a wrench in all of that. Maybe it didn't. Maybe they would not have said anything differently about who they were or what they expected moving forward. But I would venture to guess that had a very big impact on it because they just weren't able to do it the way they wanted to do it with the runway for all these younger players, like Gorman, for example, who really didn't get starting time until the injury happened. So would they have completely described this differently had he been traded in the offseason? I don't know for sure, but I suspect that they might have.
I also don't know how different it would have looked at from a win-loss perspective, even if Arenado wasn't on the team.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, this team was that Saturday night in Milwaukee where they lost late. If they would have won that game, they would have been 3 games out of a playoff spot with like 3 weeks left in the season, right there where the Cincinnati Reds were at the exact same moment. And we know what happened with the Reds. I'm not saying this was a playoff club, but I'm saying they were very much in contention for the playoffs. And 3 games out with 3 weeks to go is not an insurmountable number. So again, I this is not a shot at Nolan Arenado. I think the team would have had a very similar record, even if they would have moved on from him in the offseason.
I'm cycling through some of the comments, and as you can imagine, they're all over the map. You have a lot of people who are wishing him well and thanking him for his service. There are others who are happy to see him move. There are others that are just happy to see everybody move on. As Space said, happy to see us move on. Wish the best for Mo in the future, and glad the org is finally moving on. I think that is an overwhelming sentiment by the baseball fans. They're not out. There are some that are going to be very vocal that are out to get Mo. There are some who are like, hey, everything's fine. I think most people are right there, that there is fatigue that is set in. He said it himself. I love this job and knew it was time for a change. And this is a state of the organization. Now, you just asked the question, can they stomach another 3 years without the playoffs? Look, they have. I mean, the 70s was like that. A portion of the 90s was like that before the team was rescued. I do think that they can turn things around. I think the minor league system has great potential. I think there are some players who can come in and make an impact right away, but I don't see it as a quick fix by any stretch. I mean, it is going to if it's going to be done right, it's going to have to be done the right way. And the Cardinals have gone through these things before. Unfortunately, this is at a time where there's even more media attention on them. Every game is broadcast. It's talked about, not that it wasn't before, but it's going to be talked about every single day. The important thing they have to do is keep fans engaged. They have to make them part of the conversation. They have to have fans part of the ride, part of the journey. You have to acknowledge them. You can't be like, we're up here and you're down here. The Cardinals fans are very smart. They're very knowledgeable. They have a lot of experience. And yes, they may fly off the handle, but they're fans. That's what they do. And you have to embrace that also. And I think Chaim Bloom has actually been through the gauntlet once. Boston's nuts. Yeah. They're absolutely nuts about their team, and they are irrational often. Tampa Bay is completely different, but he's actually seen what it's like to build a minor league system, and he's done it very successfully. He actually did it in Boston too. So
look at what Boston is right now.
I mean, look at Roman Anthony.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his guy. So, this is a person, Chaim Bloom, who I think the most important thing will be tomorrow. He's got to use a baseball term, he has got to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
It is a big day for him. If you come up with any talking points that remind people of what they've been through, they're going to roll their eyes and turn you off. He's going to have to be a breath of fresh air.
He has been with, and this is where we talk about trust. He has been with 2 organizations who know how to do it at the structural, the very foundational level, and that's in the minor leagues. Boston knows how to do it. Tampa Bay knows how to do it. And as long as Cardinals fans trust that he knows what he's doing, that he knows how to build from that, and then knows how to build a major league roster on top of it, I think there's going to be plenty of leniency given to him. And he'll get, I think, at least a couple of years of that, if not more, because people are smart enough to know it does take time to build those things. They just want to know, or they just want to at least trust that you know how to make that a winner at the end of it. You know, I mentioned the Astros, I mentioned the Cubs, the Red Sox are another example of a team that kind of tore it down to the studs and then built themselves into a real perennial contender for a long time. Cardinals fans just need to know that this guy knows what he's doing, and he can start with that tomorrow by being clear about what the direction is and saying, you know, hey, I've seen it. I know that it can work, and I know how to do this, and this is how we're going to handle it.
Tom, you mentioned the fact that the fans have to be part of this. And I thought it was interesting when Mo mentioned it's not the TV deal. It's the fans that make this thing go. And then he even went into a little bit about the feelings about downtown St. Louis and how there has to be work done to make fans feel comfortable to come back to Busch Stadium. There's a lot of things there, but I think you're right in talking about the fans need to be part of this. I think to Ranji's point, fans should know that you've got a guy in place now in Heim that does know what he's doing, and he's got a track record on this, but bringing the fans along with this, I do think is a very important part of the whole thing.
It absolutely is. And I think that will be a clear message tomorrow. He's also going to double down on the history of the Cardinals and the farm system, that the Cardinals were the franchise that basically invented the farm system and made it popular across baseball. And it is time for the Cardinals to once again be, I don't know if he'll use these exact words, but to be the team that everybody, the standard is probably the best way to put it. The standard that everybody aspires to be when it comes to an organization, that it's unbreakable, that it's an organization that is taught the right way. You know, when you have Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, just to not to use them as an example for the 1 millionth time, but I will. They were both drafted out of high school. They both came in highly regarded, first rounders. They both look as if they are still trying to learn this game at the major league level. That is not how this should be. These players should be, if you draft them, especially that young, if you're drafting these players, and again, the pandemic set the minor league system back a little bit, and I get that, but they should be drafted, put into a minor league system where they are developed and they come out of the minors into this. This is not a farm club here. This is the major leagues. And when you come up to this level, you should be able to be plugged in to create a winner. These should be winning players ready to go. And that has not been the case. We've seen Walker be a work in progress. We've seen Gorman be a work in progress. And that's not what this level is about. And they've got to reverse that.
There's growth that takes place when you get to the big leagues. That's every player. There's a lot of stuff you're going to have to learn because the talent you're facing is way better. The pitching you face is so much better. But there's some stuff you just need. There are basics that you need to know before you get here, right? I mean, there's patience for a learning curve once you get to the big leagues, but you better know how to do a lot of stuff by the time you get here, because while there's teaching that happens here, you're a professional, and there's stuff you got to know.
And by the way, before we take a break, they used to be that, and they used to be that under John Mozeliak's watch. John Mozeliak was the one who took over in 2007 and did what Bill DeWitt wanted, which was to develop players, to follow them, study in analytics, and to closely monitor these players as they rose through the system. And in 2011, 4 years later, they were for the first time Organization of the Year. Baseball America and everybody else talked about them. Not only did they win the World Championship, but they were Organization of the Year. He was Executive of the Year, and they won it again. And that was because they were the team that everybody tried to replicate. You asked, Derek Gould wrote a nice piece about it, asking all these other executives. Everybody wanted to be Mo, and everybody wanted to be Mo's system. And somewhere along the line, they did get there, and then they passed him.
Yeah.
And so, it's time for a change, but it is okay to give credit to the time previous 27 years before this really started to come to an end here in these final 3 years of not making the playoffs. And we have, I think in the coverage of this have been fair in following. We are going to take a quick break. We'll come back, have more. We have a lot of comments that have rolled in. We're going to continue to pop those up on the live stream, and we'll read some of those in our final segment. With Matt Pauley, I'm Tom Ackerman of Busch Stadium, Chris Ranji, Matt Pajeski, back in our KMOX studios. It's the Gashouse Gang. It's sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, and by Anderson Hospital. We will be right back.
Thinking about a bath remodel or swapping that old tub for a sleek, easy-to-clean shower? Glover here for Michael's Baths with one question: what is there even to think about? Michael's beats the competition by 30 to 50%, uses top quality materials, and backs it with over 30 years of experience. And now they'll throw in a free shower door or $500 off. Schedule a free in-home consultation, 636-775-0800, michaelsbaths.com. That's michaelsbaths.com.
The Musial Awards celebrates its 20th year on Saturday, November 22nd at Stiefel Theater. You can be in the audience for this nationally televised event hosted right here in St. Louis. It's a night to be entertained and inspired. Tickets at musialawards.com.
KMOX welcomes Trans-Siberian Orchestra and their monumental tour, The Ghosts of Christmas Eve, to Enterprise Center December 23rd at 3 p.m. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. A portion of the proceeds benefit Sightman Kids at St. Louis Children's Hospital. And right now, Trans-Siberian Orchestra is offering their lowest ticket price in years, starting at $55, including fees, only for a limited time. For more info, KMOX.com/events.
House stealing. It's a nightmare that's real. It's the FBI's term for thieves stealing your home's title and draining your equity. Just one fake document filed with a recorder, and scammers can own your home on paper, drain your equity, and do it all without you even knowing. Imagine waking up to a foreclosure or eviction notice. Listen to former title thief Matt Cox.
What people don't realize is the ease in which this crime can happen. I can take the deed to your house and I can transfer that deed into my name. It's a great crime, and it's happening all the time.
So how can you stop the nightmare and protect yourself? Find out if you're already a victim now at HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code RADIO and get a 30-day free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection, a title scan, and access to a title specialist, a $250 value. Don't wait. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now, promo code RADIO.
When life happens and you need to sell your St. Louis area home, call trusted realtor Gloria Liu with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Gloria is St. Louis's real estate expert with more than 22 years of experience and expertise, helping you sell quickly and for the most money.
Selling your home can be so stressful, especially when life happens, like a sudden job change, a passing of a loved one, or a growing family. Knowing exactly how much your home will sell in today's market is the first step. Then I back it up with an upfront written guarantee. My guarantee is simple and easy to understand. If I can't sell your home at our agreed upon price and time frame, I'll buy it myself.
When life happens, the name to remember is Gloria Liu, Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. I strongly suggest you call her right now at 314-325-6888, 314-325-6888, or visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com. Gloria and seller must agree on price and possession date.
Now back to the Gashouse Gang, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling on 104.1 FM KMOX.
We got about 6 or 7 minutes to go here, and then we'll turn things over to the Dave Glover Show. We have full coverage tomorrow from Busch Stadium. Heim Bloom's news conference at 10 o'clock. That is going to be very, very interesting. Not that this wasn't, but it's John Mozeliak's farewell news conference. He's not going to give you a ton of news items at this point. In fact, he said it yesterday on Sports on a Sunday Morning. This is going to be for me to give gratitude, to talk about my career. I know I'm going to answer some questions, but I'm not talking about what's ahead. That's for the next regime. I'll tell you one thing, though, that needs to be nipped in the bud tomorrow, and that is Ollie Marmol. I mean, it's still like hanging out there. Look at these comments that come in. Here's Steve Niles, not spending a dime until they get rid of Ollie. They want a blank slate, then wipe it clean with coaching and management. I mean, you just one after the other and the supporters of Ollie are not going to be as vocal as those, Matt, who are negative towards Ollie, but a change in manager, I just don't see it happening.
I don't either. And I'm excited to see. We didn't always know when some controversial decisions that got connected to Ollie, I think sometimes were coming from above his head. I think Ollie and Heim are going to get along great. I think it's going to be a very good partnership. But even if it's not, I think you need to learn that before you move on from Ollie if they were. And I hope they don't move on from Ollie. I hope everything is great. But I'm excited to see Ollie managing the club under a Heim Bloom-led baseball operation. I think that's going to be something that could be very, very good. And hey, if they get done with the next season, they just say, you know what? We don't work well together, then you shake hands and you move on. But there's no reason to do that with a guy like Ollie, who, despite what many people believe, really has gotten a lot out of this roster. Had no business.
They should have been much worse than they were this year.
Yes.
Yeah. And so managers aren't everything. And I still think that we dramatically overrate how much influence a manager has on what happens on a baseball field. You can create a good environment for your players. You can know how to push the right people at the right time. But the game itself is not as strategic as like football is, for example, where your offensive scheme matters and your defensive scheme, your offensive game plan, all this stuff that is so heavily driven by not just talent, but coaching. Baseball is different. Baseball is a much, much different sport, and most of the game is one-on-one. And so you cannot have your hands on everything a batter and a pitcher do, which is why I think we overrate the influence of managers. And if you think this season was not particularly good because of the manager, I just think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how baseball works. I think you get a pretty good manager, you keep him there, and you hope that the players do their jobs like they're supposed to. What can he do? Make the lineup, make some pitching changes. I would argue he did really well with the bullpen this year, considering how the bullpen has done or did do. And that's like the main job. That's like the one thing that is the most noticeable thing a manager does is utilize a bullpen. And it would be really difficult to argue that he did a lousy job with that. So if you watch that happen all season and then say, yeah, he's no good, go get somebody else, what the hell do you think's going to happen next? Who do you think's going to come in and turn a 78-win team into an 88-win team just because he's in the dugout? If you think that somebody else would have had them 10 games better this year, I think you're out of your mind.
Yeah. You know what you need? You need better players.
Better roster.
It's right.
Just the way it is.
Every single manager who knows what he's talking about says if you don't have the horses, you are not going to win. And they are right.
Now, I think that some of the Ollie detractors are big Mike Schilt fans that from day one said, that's not my guy. And I'm really upset at how Mike got let go. And so therefore I am going to ride Ollie until it's over. And that's just the way it's going to be. And he's going to have to deal with that. And I think actually he's gotten better and better with living with that. And he has, I believe the front office has his back. We're going to find out for sure when they say it tomorrow. I think the players like him and have his back, but he also holds them accountable. I do think he's going to have a much different roster. Much different roster. Folks, I'm just preparing you that I think that the Cardinals are going to make some changes in this offseason that are going to be significant. We'll figure out just what they are, who they're going to hang on to, and that's going to be a discussion for tomorrow because Chris and Matt and Kevin Wheeler and Bernie Miklas, we're all going to be together tomorrow, and we're going to do a full 3 hours of coverage tomorrow. We're going to start with Heim Bloom's news conference at 10. We're going to anticipate that going until about 10:30, and then we are going to have a load of guests and analysis, including you, because our viewers and listeners are very important in all this, and we're going to continue to include you. And any questions about, is the Gashouse Gang going to continue the offseason? We started as an offseason show, actually, a year ago. And yes, we will. We will take you all the way to spring training. So we look forward to that. Matt, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you. Thanks to Ben Boyd as well. He popped in here to say hello and oversee some things. Thanks to Chris Ranji and to Matt Pajeski.
Well, I'm at work. I'm getting paid. This isn't voluntary.
I know.
I mean, same for Matt. What are you thanking him for? He's supposed to be there.
I know, but he's good. He's good at what he does.
Very good. I love him.
We will see you soon. DGS is after us. And then tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, put it in your phones. We want to see you. We want to be part of it. We will be here live.
Hey, guys, Kevin Wheeler here for 213 Complex, which you can pick